Hello and welcome. This is Mike D, and today I'm going to show you how to use the autofocus suite product in order to control some Daz Studio's features with the usage of Elgato's Stream Deck Plus device. First thing I have to do is to install the package into Daz Studio. You have to navigate through your main library into the path scripts Mike D autofocus suite and execute the first script add to menu and to toolbar. Executing the script, a dialog will pop up. In this dialog, you can select between a minimal installation, a default installation, and installation for interaction with some external devices. This dialog has three columns. The first column is responsible to add the selected scripts into the script menu. The second column is responsible to add the selected scripts into the toolbar, and the third column is responsible to remove any selected script you have already installed into Daz Studio. Hovering the mouse above the last column will show you in a tooltip the purpose of the selected script. I'm going to leave these selected scripts as they are the default installation, and I'm going to press the Add for Elgato Stream Deck Plus Interaction to Selection button in order to add the additional scripts I want. Now I've got to press the Add to Menu button, and Daz Studio is prompting me to restart the application. This is what I'm going to do now. Let's see now how to import the profile for our Stream Deck Plus device, and the first thing I've got to do is to navigate through my Daz main library into the path General Mike D Autofocus Suite and right click anywhere on this gray area. I'm going to select the Browse Folder Location option and the folder will pop up. Now I've got to open my Stream Deck driver settings and choose my Stream Deck Plus option over here. Before installing the right profile, I've got to download a custom plugin, so I'm pressing this keyboard with a plus sign, and I'm going into the plugins, and over here into the search area I'm going to type the super macro plugin. As you can see, it's only one by Raro Radar. And you've got to press the install button. I've got you install as I have already installed it in my machine. After this, you've got to close this dialog, and now I am back into my Stream Deck Plus main driver page. All I have to do now is just double click on this file, the Mike D Autofocus for Daz Studio Plus, and a new profile will be loaded, will be installed over here. I've got it into this area, and by selecting this, you've got to make some other modifications. In the third page, if you have any Daz main profile, you've got to click on this button, and over here in the profile you've got to choose your main Daz profile if you've got one, and also if you've got the tone mapping console suite or the lights console suite, you also have to choose its button and point into this profile the appropriate profile. Close this dialog, and now your Stream Deck Plus device is ready to be used with Daz Studio. Back in Studio, and as you can see, I have loaded an older promo scene in order to work with. I'm going to need two viewports, so I'm going into the Window, Viewport, side-by-side option. And I've got to say here that most scripts are working with the custom camera, the current camera. The current camera is the selected camera into the active viewport. As you can see here, I've got the perspective view. Most scripts want some other custom camera, not the predefined Daz views, And in the case I haven't any custom camera over here, the scripts will look for any selected camera in the scene tab instead. You can change anytime your active viewport by clicking on it. Another clarification is that most scripts are display the current status on the status bar. So keep an eye all the time on the status bar for information about current values, etc. Let's create now some new cameras. I can navigate through the scene, find a suitable angle, let's say somewhere here, and now I can press into the Stream Deck this green button with a plus and the new indicator. Pressing this button, a dialog will pop up, and in the drop-down menu I can choose from the most common focal lengths. Let's say that I want a 105mm custom camera over here. I'm pressing the OK, and a new camera is created into the scene. I've got to say here that all cameras created by this way will be locked into the scene, and I've got to unlock them whenever I want to move them around. Let's go into another position, let's say somewhere here, and let's create another camera. I'm pressing the same key again, and now I'm going to choose let's say the 80mm camera. OK again, and I've got my two cameras into the scene. Let's create now some custom view cameras. The custom view cameras are some hidden cameras, and their purpose is to store the current view, so I can always restore it and get to the point I want. Let's say that I want over here to set a custom camera in the left side of my model, and I can achieve it by press and hold the V1, V2 or V3 key on my Stream Deck device. If I'm going to press and hold now the V1 key, you will see in the status bar that the custom view 1 is saved. I can move into another location, let's say somewhere here, and let's say that over here I want to save a custom view 2 camera. I'm pressing and holding the V2 key, and again in the status bar you can see that the custom view 2 is now saved. As you can see into the scene tab, the custom cameras are not visible, they are hidden nodes, and you've got to open this menu, the show hidden nodes, if you want to include them in this list. Alternative, you can access the cameras by selecting them over here in the drop-down menu, or you have just to press the V1, V2 or V3 key on Stream Deck device. Pressing the V1 key will select the custom view camera in the active viewport, V2 for V2, etc. If you have any custom view selected in your active viewport, for example here the custom view 1, and you press again the same key, the perspective view will be selected instead. You can also rotate through the cameras with this blue button with a circle into your Stream Deck device, and by pressing this key, all custom cameras will be cycled through your active viewports, and the perspective view also. As you can see, the scripts are not selected the current camera into your scene, but only in the active viewport. Now let's maximize our workspace. You can maximize your workspace by pressing this key, this green key with the red arrows in the Stream Deck device, and this script will toggle on and off the dock areas on the left and the right side of your user interface. In this case, all the toolbars will be visible, so you can choose any button you want. You can achieve a similar functionality choosing window and full screen mode into Daz Studio, or you can just press the Shift and the F11 key as a shortcut. But in this case, the toolbars will not be visible, and each time you exit this mode, Daz Studio will repaint the user interface, and in some cases it will crash the application. It's more convenient and easy to press this button, and you've got your dock areas toggle on and off. Let's move now into our main camera, into the active viewport. And let's say that I don't like the current focal length. You can use your focal length knob over here, and by pressing the key, you will see in the status bar the current value. You can rotate the knob clockwise or counterclockwise in order to get a lower value or a higher value in this property. I can get here the value I want. I'm rotating the knob extremely slow to see the differences. And let's say that I want something like the 50 millimeters as you see in the status bar. If I want to repositioning the camera into a new location or angle, I've got to unlock it first as it is locked, as I mentioned before. I'm pressing the lock and unlock button over here, the green button with the two locks. And as you can see in the status bar, the selected camera is now unlocked. I can move it in my scene, change the rotation, the angle, and place it in a more suitable place, let's say somewhere here. I can also select a node into my scene, for example here, Lucy's head, and I can use the fourth knob, the rotate camera knob, clockwise or counterclockwise, in order to rotate my current camera around the selected node. Remember that the camera must be unlocked before you are using this knob. Let's say that I want another angle. Let's say that I'm happy with this rotation, and now I'm going to lock the camera again to prevent any accidentally movement. I'm going to switch my current camera's DOF property on right now. So in the second page of my Stream Deck device, I'm pressing this key over here, the DOF key. And as you can see in the status bar, the selected camera's DOF is now on. But what exactly is the DOF, or else the depth of field, for any user that does not know? I am opening the left dock area, so I've got my scenes tab visible, and I'm clicking on the right viewport to make it active. I'm switching over here into the custom view 1, and in the scene tab I am selecting the camera of 105 millimeters, although I have changed its focal length. As you can see in the right viewport, there is crosshair with a green and a red line and a sphere in the center. This is a focal point, or else this is a point where my camera is focused. There is a plane in front of this crosshair and a plane behind this crosshair. All the items between these planes will be clear in the final render. All the items that are in front of this plane and all the items that are behind the last plane, the second plane, will be blurred in the final render. There are many ways to change the focal point of the selected camera. By default, Daz way, the existing way is to select your camera into the Scene tab, navigate through your Parameters tab, find the camera group, and over here change the focal distance, as you can see by dragging the slider to the left or to the right, changing the focal length, and get it to your desirable location. There is another more convenient and faster way to do it with extremely precise results, which is the usage of the focus button in Stream Deck application. You've got, to be on the second page, and you've got to press this button over here. First of all, I've got to turn my active viewport to the left one. In this viewport, I've got my camera selected. And now I'm selecting Lucy as the object I want the camera to focus on. Now I'm pressing this button on the Stream Deck device, and as Lucy is a figure, the script recognizes that Lucy has left and right eye, and it prompts me if I want to focus on Lucy's eyes instead of the head, which is a selected current item. It is essential for portraits to focus your camera on the eyes, so I'm going to apply positive, yes, and now the current camera is focused between Lucy's eyes. Let's test it by selecting again the current camera, as you can see now, the crosshair is at the same level as Lucy's eyes. There is another way to manually focus on your selected item or your desirable level by using your Stream Deck's second page, second knob over here, and by turning this knob counterclockwise, it will bring the focal point closer to your camera, and by rotating the knob clockwise, it will increase its distance with your selected camera. I'm going to focus again on Lucy's head, so I've got a clear picture in my render. So I'm using the focus script again, and yes, now my camera is back again at the original position. Let's say now that I want to change the clear areas and the blurred areas of my render, and I want to include more items, making this box even more white, or I want to have less cleared areas in here, making this box even more narrow. I can achieve this by changing the f-stop property, and the easiest way to achieve this is by using my fourth knob in the second page of the Stream Deck device, this knob over here, which will incrementally increase and decrease the f-stop for the current camera. I have the active viewport, the left one, and in here my current camera is the main camera. So by rotating the knob clockwise or counterclockwise, it will go into the next f-stop or the previous f-stop. I'm going to do this now, and I want you to take a look at the status bar all the time. By rotating the knob clockwise, you can see now that the f-stop is increasing, and at the same time the box that determined by these two planes is getting larger. Now I've got more items in the cleared areas. By turning this knob counterclockwise, I'm getting smaller values for the f-stop, and now I've got a more narrow area for my cleared space in the render. Now I'm going to to hide the dock areas, and I'm going to turn in the left viewport the NVIDIA iRay preview on in order to show you another way to have a visual representation of the cleared and blurred areas in your render using the near and the far plane visibilities on and off. It isn't necessary to turn NVIDIA iRay for your cases. Having the left viewport as the active viewport, so I've got my main camera selected, I can now go into the second page of my Stream Deck Plus device and press the DOF Far button located over here. Pressing this button, a white plane will be displayed in my screen, and this plane really is the plane behind my focal point over here, behind Lucy. This plane, in order to be visible in my viewport, I've got to select my main camera in the viewport. I've got to select my main camera into my scene, and I've got to navigate into my camera parameters tab and select for my display group the Far DOF plane visibility on, setting the opacity in some high value, as the default value is 5% and the plane is not visible. Pressing the DOF Far button or the DOF Near button into my Stream Deck device, the scripts will do all this action for me. Now that my far plane is visible, I know that this plane is representing the plane behind Lucy. I know that all the items that are behind this plane, and these items are not visible to me in my left viewport, are going to be blurred in the final render. Pressing again this button will set this plane visibility off, and now I'm going to press the DOF Near visibility plane in the second page of my device over here, in order to set the near plane visibility on. The near plane is the plane in front of Lucy, and as you can understand, all the items in front of this white plane will now blurred in the final render. I can change, as I told you before, this option by changing the f-stop, rotating the appropriate knob on my Stream Deck device. If I'm going to press this knob instead of rotating, it will show me, it will display on the status bar the current value. As I can see now, my current f-stop is 19. I can increase or decrease this f-stop to make more or less items clear in the final render. If I'm happy with the result, I can press the DOF Near button again to set this plane's visibility off. Now I can close my NVIDIA iRay preview. I can switch it off, as I don't want it for the next examples. Let's decrease now this f-stop value somewhere to 11. And now let's see the case that I want to move somewhere else my main model, Lucy, or my main camera. But I want my camera to stay focused on Lucy's eyes. I'm going to show you a new script that adds this powerful functionality into Daz Studio, which is the autofocus script. In order to work, I've got to select my main model over here in the left viewport, and over here I've got my main camera selected as well. I'm going again into the first or the second page of my Stream Deck, and I'm choosing the autofocus function. By pressing this key, a dialog will pop up, and as you can see again, the script has recognized that Lucy is a figure, and an option to focus on Lucy's eyes instead of the head, which is the current selection, is now visible. All I have to do is just press the switch autofocus on button, and now the script is tracking both Lucy's movement and my camera's movement into the scene. Let's open the scene tab. Let's select Lucy and let's move it somewhere to the back. If I select again my main camera, you will see now that the focus point has moved in order to select to focus again the camera on Lucy's eyes in her new position. If I'm going to undo this action, the movement of Lucy, you will see that camera's focal point is also following Lucy's movement. Now, I'm going to switch this option off as I want to manually focus for the next examples. I'm selecting Lucy's head again. I'm pressing the autofocus button in my Stream Deck, and I have just to press the switch autofocus off button, and I am done with this. I'm also maximizing my workspace for the next examples. The next script is a powerful script, and it also adds new functionality into Daz Studio. This is a perspective compression script, and this is a photographical terminology. It means that you can get your camera closer to your model, and at the same time you can decrease the focal length, or at the opposite direction, you can get your camera further away from your model, and at the same time you can increase your focal length, keeping the relative size of your model the same into the scene. By increasing or decreasing the focal lengths, the lens will become wider or even more narrow, and the frame will include more or less items, especially in the background of your of your focused item. Let's see an example. I can see here that I've got only a very small portion of the stairs visible in my frame. I've got this trunk here with a flower, and this door behind Lucy is visible. Almost all of this door is visible. Now, I can go into the first page of the Stream Deck device, and I can use the third knob, the perspective compression knob, turning it clockwise or counterclockwise to get closer or further away from Lucy. As you can see here, as in the status bar, as the distance from Lucy now increases, the script also increases the focal length, so now I've got a more narrow background, and as you can see here, in this point, the stairs are now not visible, the door is almost at full length, and the trunk has almost gone. Turning this knob to the opposite direction, counterclockwise, I am decreasing the focal length. You can see it down into the status bar, and at the same time I'm decreasing the distance between the camera and Lucy. Now the lens is more wider, so I can include more items into my scene. And as you can see in this point, for example, I've got a bigger portion of the stairs included, and all the trunk with this window behind it is now visible into my frame. With this script, you can adjust which items you want to include or not into your final render. And at the same time, you can keep the relative size of your model the same into the scene. Let's see two more scripts. If I have accidentally rotated my camera into my Z-axis, let's go into the left viewport, unlock the selected camera, and by holding the control key in my keyboard, I'm going to rotate it using the right mouse button into this position. Let's say that I have accidentally rotated the camera here, or I have done it into purpose, and I can't undo this action. If I want to reset this Z tilting of my camera, all I have to do is to unlock it. It is already unlocked. And into the second page of my Stream Deck device, I can press this button over here with a Z, which will reset the tilting. If I have any item in the scene rotated like Lucy, let's turn some random rotation over the Z-axis and over the X-axis. I can again select my item, and now I have to press the X and Z button in my Stream Deck device in order to reset my object tiling. You can see now that Lucy is again at the original position. I hope that with this suite you get more functionality between your Stream Deck Plus device and Daz Studio's cameras, movement or properties. Thank you for watching this video.